Good morning and welcome back to CompSci.rocks and another video in our series of walkthroughs of computer science AP free response questions. This time we're going to look at the combined table question from the 2021 AP CS exam. Recently, College Board has gone to specifying what type of questions each of the 4 free response questions are, and one of those is a complete class that you'll write from scratch. In 2021, that was this question. It's also fairly common for you to have at least one question where you're working with a class that you've never seen before, which happens here as well. For this question, picture yourself working at a restaurant when a large group comes in, larger than any single table available. The solution is to push 2 tables together. That's what we're doing in this question. We're given a class, single table, that represents a single table. We'll look at that one in the next slide. And we'll then implement methods in a class, combined table, that represents 2 tables pushed together. So let's start by looking at single table. There's nothing for us to do with this class, but we do need to know what methods it has. It's a pretty safe bet that if the writers of a free response question are going to go through the trouble of listing a method in a class like this, you'll probably be calling it somewhere. So it's important that we look at the 4 methods given to us. GetNumSeats returns the number of seats available at a single table. GetHeight returns the height of that table. GetViewQuality returns the view quality. And SetViewQuality sets the view quality. Take special note of the SetViewQuality method. It's not one we'll actually call directly, but it does come into play when we implement the constructor in combined table because it lets us change the view quality of an already instantiated table. And there are a few rules for how combined table works. A combined table will have 2 fewer seats than the 2 single tables that make it up. This makes sense because when you push 2 tables together, you lose the seats where the tables connect. If those 2 tables are the same height, the desirability of the pair is the average of the view quality of those 2 tables. And if they're not the same height, the desirability is 10 less than the average. We'll need these rules when we're implementing methods in just a bit. Let's take a look at building the combined table class. First thing we need to do is write out the class header or signature. Like all classes in AP Computer Science, it's public, followed by the keyword class, followed by the name of the class. When I first saw this question, it really felt like an inheritance question to me. On first read, it seemed like a combined table should extend single table, but after getting to the end of the problem, it was clear that it shouldn't. A combined table isn't a special type of single table. It's composed of 2 single tables. It's what you may have heard referred to as either a composition or a has-a relationship. A combined table has a single table in it. Well, really 2. The term for this is composition. That said, apparently I wasn't the only one that had the inheritance vibe. On the rubric for this question, it was specifically stated to not take off points if combined table extended single table. It shouldn't, but you wouldn't have lost points if you did. Next up is the constructor. For that, we need to take a look at a few lines out of the PDF that describe how the constructor is used. Notice that there are 2 single table references passed as parameters to the constructor. That tells us what we need to know to write out a signature for the constructor. It also indirectly tells us what the instance variables we need. In this case, it's 2 single table references, which I called table 1 and table 2. This is where we need to come back and talk about that set view quality method inside single table. Some students like to create primitive instance variables like table 1 height and table 1 view quality instead of storing a reference to the table itself. Sometimes that's fine, but if you did it that way, you wouldn't be able to change the view quality of a table, and that method wouldn't work. Not tragic, but it would lead to a point lost. And then we just need to do what constructors do and set the instance variables to the value of the parameters. For can seat, we return true or false whether the combined table can seat how many people. This is where that loss of 2 seats from pushing tables together comes in. First, I created a variable that holds the sum of the seats in the 2 tables and then subtracts 2. And then return whether that sum is at least how many. Logically, this isn't a very difficult bit of code. What they're testing, though, is that you know how to call methods on a reference instance variable. You'll do something similar in Part B. And for Part B, we need to implement a method that gets the desirability of a combined table. Looking back at the instructions, the desirability is based on the view quality of the 2 tables and whether the same height. If they are, we'll return the average of the 2 view qualities. If they're not the same height, we'll return less than the average. So the first thing I want to do is calculate the average by adding the 2 view qualities and dividing by 2. Again, this is where you'll need to show that you understand how to call methods on a reference instance variable. If the 2 heights are the same, just return the calculated average. Otherwise, subtract 10 and return that. I would probably simplify it a bit here though and skip the else and just return minus 10 without it. And some people shy away from multiple returns, so you also could do something like this where the two heights are not equal. You subtract 10 from average and then return average at the end. You end up at the exact same place. And so you can see it all together. Here's the complete class. Doesn't have to be exactly like this to get the full 9 points, but this is a working solution. And with that, we're at the end of another video. Thanks for stopping by and working through this with me, and I'll see you next time.